it's always been taboo. You're either full business or you're full casual, and you can't do anything else. And this watch says, "You, yes, I can." You know.
Right. Hey, welcome to our channel, The Watch Bros. I'm Jason,
Michael.
and today we wanted to get into a new video that has come out by Esquire magazine with John Mayer. I think that most people that are in the hobby know that John Mayer is a huge influence in the watch industry. He has recently become not a spokesperson. They've brought him on as a collaborator with AP, and the Esquire video goes through the collab that he did with them on the perpetual calendar. It's a gorgeous piece. You should check out the video. In fact, we'll probably just link it in our description so that you can take a look at it and watch it at your leisure. But today we wanted to go through and talk about some of the interesting things that he had to say in that video, and just take a deep dive and get our thoughts on what we think compared to what he said, or maybe just get some different perspective that maybe we align with him, maybe we don't. I'll let you kind of start off what you thought when you watched the video. What were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good video. I liked he's very articulate, so that's one thing about the video that captured my attention. I was able to watch a full hour video about, I thought it was going to be at the beginning about one watch. I told you that, and you're like, hey, check this video out.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I don't want to watch a full video for an hour about a perpetual calendar. And you're like, no, there's more to it than that. So I actually was really impressed with the video. He had a lot of really good points on the video just about watch collecting in general.
Mm-hmm.
That hit home with me, and like one that stood out was how watch collectors we spend more time talking about how a watch makes us feel than anything. Like staring at a watch and trying to pull that into words is really hard. And I was thinking about some of my favorite watches as I was watching that.
Yeah.
That it was I think he hit the nail on the head. It's really tough to like describe a feeling that a certain watch does for you, whether it's something that that reminds you of a moment in time, or whatever it may be. So that would probably be the first thing, and then we can bounce back and forth on what kind of thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I agree. I thought that was an interesting point. I've made notes on a few things, so that way we can just go through some of the highlighted areas.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning of the video, they're really sitting down to discuss the specific collaboration that he did with AP. But there are some nuggets of information that are really interesting. One of the things that he talks about in the beginning of this video is this high-low mix in watch design, and something that he's really attracted to. And he goes into while he likes a perpetual calendar, he loves the fact that AP takes this sports watch, the Royal Oak, the ruggedness and the sportiness around that case design and the look of that watch, compared to something that is more elegant like a Patek. And then they put that high complication inside of the ruggedness of that. And the mix between this high complication and this lower rugged look of a watch case, and marry that together. And for me, I also gravitate toward that contrast, and I think that it's very interesting. I have an AP Royal Oak that's rose gold, and then it's put on a rubber strap. So you've got this high-end material, this rose gold, that then is paired with this rubber strap. And I like the way that looks together. It looks amazing on bracelet, don't get me wrong, but the dichotomy between this rose gold case and then this sporty rubber strap really appeals to me, and I like the way that it looks and mixes those two worlds together.
Yeah, it's almost like you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it makes it perfect.
Mhm.
You know, it's like perfectly imperfect, almost like that contrast between business and casual, you know, and I think, you know, when you think about fashion industry, you're starting to do that too. You're mixing tennis shoes with suits.
Yeah.
You know, that's what comes to mind when I think about
For
that.
sure.
Like, it's always been taboo. You're either full business or you're full casual, and you can't do anything else. And this watch says, you know, fuck you. Yes, I can.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I can. And by the way, it looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just is interesting.
Right.
You know, it adds a level of interest that
Mhm.
that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably because we're so used to like the boring, like this is the cookie cutter lane I need to stay in, and it opens that palette up for what, you know, a bunch of possibilities.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I thought was really cool that he talked about was understanding as you become more mature in the hobby, understanding the difference between the excitement in the moment for a watch and distinguishing between that excitement and whether it's something that you're going to actually love long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that anybody that has collected for at least a few years starts to understand this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you know, there are amazing watches that I really enjoy to look at. But does that mean that it's going to be picked up on a regular basis and put on my wrist if I were to buy it?
Yeah.
And you've got to parse that out. You can appreciate something and think that it's really cool or beautiful, but it may not stay in the rotation after you buy it.
What do you call them? A vacation watch?
Yeah.
It mentioned like vacation, like
a summer fling.
yeah, summer fling. That's yeah. So you think about like you actually got onto me like midway into watch collection. Like, dude, diversify. Quit buying.
When I watched
that $3,500
when I
watch.
watched this video and he was talking about it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
were the very first person that popped
Yeah,
in my head.
I
was
did.
like, this is Michael to a T.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when you saw a watch that you liked and you just bought it.
I had a lot of summer flings. I had a summer fling with like the $3,500 watch.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with
Anything
that.
between 1,500 and 3,500,
Yeah.
dude, it was right for the picking.
Yeah. And I was complaining about, you know, I don't want to spend $20K, and you're like, dude, you just did on the last
10 watches.
eight to 10 watches. And by the way, you just did that in the last 3 months.
And by the way, those 10 watches all have very similar design language.
Yeah.
So you've got
They all look
10 watches that are so similar. Why wouldn't you just get one watch that is badass?
Well, I think that like you've said just that, like as you mature with your logic and thinking, it's just like a little kid. If you took 5 $1 bills and handed it to a little kid, or you had a $5 or $10 bill, they think they have more. It's like,
Yeah.
I have more. I'm going to take the
For
5
sure.
ones.
Yeah.
Even as a grown adult, you fall victim to, I've got more watches, I've got more diversity, and you really don't. You've got a bunch of $3,500 watches, what you have. So save up, you know. So I thought that's what hit home with me the most on the video when I was watching it, is kind of that.
Yeah. In that segment, he talks about gaining wisdom.
Yep.
And that goes to more is not always better.
Yeah. Yeah. You can appreciate a watch from afar. Like,
yeah.
like
I
it.
think we need to learn that as watch collectors, and some of us do learn it quicker than others, and some of us maybe never learn it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do think that understanding what's going to last in your collection and what's actually going to get rotation time and wear time is pretty important. I fell victim to the same, especially in the beginning. I have, gosh, maybe 20 watches, I think, that are not even sitting in a watch box because I am not going to wear them.
Yep.
And again, they're anywhere from, I'd say, $1,000 to $2,500, $3,000, probably in that range. The funny thing is I have trouble
letting
them go.
I did the same thing. Like, and I finally told myself one day, I'm like, how many, in excuse the French, how many fucking tutors can you own? Like, I think I had like 7. I'm like looking at them all. I'm like, they're all the same watch, dude.
They're the same
They're
watch.
just different colors. Like, who cares? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So even though I've come to the point where I am more particular about what I'm going to buy, and I do distinguish the difference between liking something and really wanting it in my collection, I have probably 20 or so watches that I have not worn in well over a year and a half, 2 years probably, have not been on my wrist, not in a watch box. They're literally sitting in my office. And I still have not been able to put them up for sale.
I think we've had that
weird
conversation 4 or 5 times. Like, yeah, I think I'm gonna pause this weekend and put them up. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
It took me.
Michael's like, that's like the 12th time you've said this.
You're
Bro.
like, yeah, but like on eBay, there's all the like, chargebacks and people like bitching about scratches.
I'm
that weren't
so
disclosed.
scared of eBay now. I was a huge eBay seller. I would sell so
They
many
do
things
not
on eBay.
side on the side of a seller at all. I don't have issues with them because I overly like if there's a micro hair scratch, I'm going to list it.
You have to.
I'm like, this is a worn ass watch.
But even then,
even then,
I have personally seen incidences where seller can lose, and when they lose, it's done.
It's done. You just gave a watch away for free, or you got it back, bang to hell and back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he goes on in this video. He talks specifically more in depth about his collaboration with AP. And he describes the excitement around designing a watch and comparing it. I love this part. He compared having a new watch. Now, he's specifically talking about designing this watch, but I related it to when you get a new watch, how it's like having a new baby. Literally, you're so careful with it. You're taking my phone is filled with photos. I have more photos of watches in my phone than I do of my kids and my family, with hands down, 3 times as many at least. And he talks about how many photos he has of this one watch that he's taken over and over because he's trying to capture it in like the perfect light. Yeah. And I've related to that because I do the same exact thing. I'll just be in public. People are like stepping around me, like get out of the way, asshole. And I'm sitting there trying to line up my watch just perfectly. I'm having to pause 30 seconds until the second hand gets in the right spot so that I can take the picture. And people are just shaking their head. And I'm like, well, whatever, man. This is
what I love. This
is my baby. And I thought that was a pretty interesting
I think
moment in the video.
Spot on. You almost walk around like with a bubble. Like, I don't want to wear it. And then like trying to get the perfect picture. So I think watch collectors, at least for me, do that because you want other people to see the beauty that you see. And he made the comment, he was talking about the calendar on there. He said that he's like, it's like 15% better in the raw, like when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're trying to do when you're getting a picture is, that honeymoon period with your watch is you want other people to understand like how freaking beautiful this thing is.
Yeah. This piece of art that you're wearing on your wrist, you're trying to capture it in the same eye that you see it in naturally.
Your eye. Yeah. It's almost like Ed Bassmaster, where he's like, just look at it. Yeah. Just look at it. Just look at it. Yeah. I do that. I'll stare at the watch, and then other people that aren't into watches, I'm like, look at that. They're like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah. You can tell the time with it.
That's a green watch.
Rad.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. You're like, no, but just look at it.
Yeah.
Just look at it. And then he goes on. It's about 19 or so minutes in. He goes on to talk about how cool it was working with AP. I thought this was really neat because he goes into saying AP was very receptive. When you think of high horology, and specifically when you think of the Holy Trinity, I think about tradition. Now, AP definitely of the 3 in the Holy Trinity are the more aggressive. They have the more aggressive design language, but still they are rooted in their design. They're rooted in their heritage. And so when you present something that is outside of that box, my thought would be that they would maybe push against that. But John Mayer talked about how open they were to that. Yeah. That when he brought his ideas and the design language that he wanted in this piece, that they were very receptive and that they tried multiple things until they finally came to a
Laid on
design
one.
that they liked.
Yeah.
And I love AP anyways, but it made me love them more when I saw
That they're
him
not
talk
conformed in
about
this
that.
box. Rolex is never going to do that.
No, Rolex wouldn't do it. Patek probably wouldn't do it.
And Patek does some light stuff, but they're not doing like a full collab watch. Yeah, well, I don't see them doing that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's cool that they've brought him on just to represent the brand. He made comments somewhere along, I don't know if it was in this section, about he's almost like a brand ambassador where you can go back and like represent the people too, you know. And he made a good point.
From a collector's eye.
Yeah, from a collector's eye and not a watchmaker's eye.
Yes.
But you know, he said like, you know, I can like answer to people and be like, hey, they're like, they should have done this. Yeah, but if they did that, you wouldn't want it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's true. Like you got to really think through a lot of those the plays that you make with, you know, dial choices and not just color, but like everything. It's like, would you be after that if you could have it? Probably not. You know.
Yeah, I think he mentions in there too that if you do it one way, then people will want it a different way.
Yep.
And if you were to do it that other way, then people would have wanted what you did.
Yeah, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that's like, well, I think that hand should have been this color.
Well, that also makes a piece cool too, because you know, I don't know, you envision it one way, but I normally will grow to appreciate the way the watchmaker intended it to look.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, yeah, I think this would be sick if it was matte or this was brush finish or whatever. And then, you know, I'll go back to this. Have you ever seen a watch that you thought was ugly as shit and then you've grown to love it?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. I look at watch, I'm like, I would never fucking wear that. And then like 3 years later, I see myself like investing time to see if I could like obtain that watch.
For sure.
You know, I do that often.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I hate a watch, but I'm like, nah, it's not for me. You know, maybe I've gone from a hard pass to wanting to buy a watch.
I think that your reference gets larger the longer that you're in the hobby.
Yeah.
So he mentions in the video somewhere about not wanting to be like your parents or like your grandparents. And that's usually your initial reference when you get into watches. It's like, oh, I saw my dad wear a two-tone Datejust.
Right.
Right. And you're like, I would never consider two-tone metal. It's so old looking. And then you get into the hobby, and of course you're only buying steel or you're only buying brass, and you're buying things on leather bands because you don't want a steel bracelet because your reference is that it's this older man's watch.
Yeah.
And then after you start to collect and then you start to see all of these other pieces, your reference gets bigger.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one day, you're looking at a two-tone bracelet watch.
I understand what my grandfather was thinking when he bought this.
Yeah.
You know?
And then it starts.
Mm-hmm.
Then you acquire a two-tone bracelet watch, and then all of a sudden case designs start to become more attractive that you didn't like in the beginning, and then dial designs, and then of course complications, and it's never ending with watches.
Yeah.
And so he goes on to talk about outside of that, the specialness of a well-designed watch. And I think this is what you were talking about when we first started the video. And when a watch design is truly exceptional, even seasoned collectors, people that can openly speak about watches and can eloquently talk about design language and eloquently talk about complications, when you find that special piece where everything comes together, even those people have a hard time explaining into words why it is so special.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain the feeling that you get inside, the proudness of acquiring this piece.
I normally just watch
wrist.
people like they're holding it and you just see it almost like in their eyes versus like he compared it to music. He's like a well-written song. Yeah. I think he was talking about a well-written song has the emotion, It has
it matches
it matches the instruments,
vocal. It
yeah.
matches the emotion of the lyric.
Yep.
Everything kind of comes together, and those are the songs that live forever.
They're hits, yeah.
Songs that we still listen to in 2024 that were written in the 1960s. I mean,
Yep.
think about how long ago that was, and we're still listening to that music now because it's so special that it was married together perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's what he's talking about when he talks about certain watches that are just, everything is so spot on.
Yeah.
And it makes this very special piece, and how difficult it is to explain to people in words why it is so special.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. You know, I've looked at pieces sometimes, and I'm not one to like have this extensive vocabulary. But I just look at him, I just smile. I think that's kind of my language. I'm like, this isn't going to help you, but I know what I feel inside when I'm looking at it, and so yeah, it's definitely, he hit the nail on the head when he was talking about like, it's hard to put into words what you're looking at and how you feel about it.
Then he goes on to talk more specifically about collectors' habits and things that collectors do in the watch hobby. And I found this interesting because it's not a discussion that you generally have amongst other collectors, but it's something that I know or I do. And it was interesting for me to hear it come from such a avid collector and somebody that's really ingrained in the world of watches to talk about watch winders. And
nobody uses them.
And he's like, listen, nobody uses watch winders.
No, I have two and I don't use them.
Yeah, it's if you're using a watch winder, I'm not going to hate on you, but it's so unnecessary.
Well, you lose something. So, and I thought he was going to go there with this. You lose the time of setting your watch, and that is I thought he was going there when I was watching video.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, all right, yep. And I have a watch winder. I've got two Wolf winders, and I don't use them. They sit in a Wolf box, and you lose the art of picking up and turning your watch and setting your watch in that 2 or 3 or 5 minutes or whatever you're doing, sitting down. It's almost like meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You get this time with your piece, and I like it.
There's an intimacy there.
Yeah.
There's a connection with your watch when you put it on your wrist, and you've got to pause. Even when I have a day that I know is going to be a stressful, like high output, hard working day, I'm forced to stop for 3 minutes and set the time and wind the watch. And there's a connection that you have with that piece in those 3, 4, 5 minutes that you lose if it's just on a winder, you pull it off and you throw it on your wrist.
Right.
Is there a convenience there? Yeah, I guess there's a convenience there. But the argument could be made that you're wearing down your watch because it's always running.
That's true. And I know it's a constant debate of like, do the oils bind up if you don't? Well, like
not today's oils.
No, there's synthetics. Plus you're wearing your watch enough, like in a rotation that it's still moving. But
definitely.
And I don't follow the letter of the law with not to go on a rabbit trail, and we'll probably have a session about this, but I don't follow the letter of the law of like, hey, 4 years is up or 8 years is up and I need to go have it serviced. If I notice something happens to watch, then yeah, definitely. If it's gone a long time, then yeah. But I totally agree. I don't wear. He said something else. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah.
That's a key point about watches in general. I don't have a perpetual, but I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I don't use a watch winder just because of the moment that you get.
Yeah, because and that's the same reason that I don't. It has nothing to do with the cost of a winder. You can get a winder for $200, which is not cheap, but it has nothing for me to do with the cost of the winder. It has to do with the loss of connection that I have with my timepiece.
Yeah.
And so then he goes on and he talks about collector practices. And in that, which what you're alluding to, he's like,
I'm gonna let you in on a secret.
He's like, listen, nobody sets their perpetual calendar.
No. He's like, if you've never had one before, yes, you need to know and you need to do it, and it's expected. I like how he set that. So I mean, in fact, my watch is not. I don't have a perpetual on. I've got just a Hulk on today, but I don't even think my time's set right. I just threw the watch on, but
Yeah.
it's funny. He was just like, nobody sets that.
No,
Like,
nobody
he's
says
like,
that.
if it's gonna be worn for like 4 days or something, yeah,
Sure.
you know.
But if you're wearing it for a day or two, he's like, this dirty little secret that collectors don't talk about.
Nobody knows if it's 1964. I think he said that behind
He's
this.
like, it could be New Year's Eve, 1969 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, my time's right,
Yeah.
but there's no telling what the day of the week and
Yeah.
and the year are on my
That's
perpetual
funny.
calendar. Now, I have an annual calendar, and I do try to keep it set. But the annual that I have is an Alanga and Zuna, and it's a one button adjustment. So they designed it where it's just one pusher, and that will move everything forward at the same time. So I don't have to do separate
Yeah,
pushers.
you're not spending 20 minutes to.
It makes it super easy and simple to
Mhm.
advance. So I do that with that piece. If I was to have a perpetual calendar where it had multiple pushers, that might be the only exception that I would put on a winder, maybe.
Yeah.
But even then, it's more likely that it would not go on a winder. And if it didn't go on a winder, I surely would not be setting all of those pushers
No.
every single time I put it
No,
on.
it's just too much.
I definitely would fall into the same basket that
Yeah.
Mayer says, and I would set the time and I would just be happy with it.
Yeah.
You know?
A little too intimate.
Yeah. But
Too much time.
you think about the geekiness, and you think about how special that complication is,
Mhm.
and what it can do, and how functional that complication is. And it's just so funny to think that you spend all of this money. QPs are not cheap.
Right.
And you spend all of this money on a QP, and then you don't set any of the other things besides the time. It's kind of funny that that is a thing, but with watch collectors.
I think they kind of honed in on this because when you said that, I think I made the comment. I was pulling in Target with the wife or something. I was like, yeah, I just don't like, I'm never gonna, you're not gonna live by the time you acquire one, you're not gonna live 100 years to need to, but it's cool that it can do those things.
Super
Right.
cool
It's super cool that it can.
that it can last
you're
that long without having to be reset.
Exactly. It's a master craft to be able to create something, and that hit home with me in the video. It's less. No human on this earth is gonna be of age to acquire that, appreciate it, and live long enough for it to be set. And then it'll have to be on a winder, and then it also have to be serviced. So at some time it's gonna have to be set. It could do it though.
It could do it. What's even cooler, a perpetual calendar in itself is really cool. Longa has developed a perpetual calendar, I believe, that can go 1,000 years without being reset. And then IWC this year at Watches and Wonders released I wish I could remember the name. They call it like a celestial perpetual or an infinity perpetual. I don't remember the name now. And IWC is a cool watch brand. It's not a watch that I've ever owned because most of their pieces are bigger and they're just a little too big for my liking. They probably would fit on my wrist, but I just don't want to go that large.
Mhm.
And but that complication that they developed, I believe it can go something like 1,000,000 years,
It's just insane.
without having to be reset. It's pretty insane
Yeah.
that complication is in a wristwatch. So perpetual calendars are super cool.
Mhm.
And the technology actually is advancing around them. I suspect that now that IWC has done this, that other watchmakers will
Just like an infinite calendar or whatever.
they'll come out with some other perpetuals that are going to extend beyond that
Yeah.
every 100-year mark.
Yeah.
So then he goes on, it's about 36 or so minutes in, and he goes on and talks about the difference between showing off a piece and the appreciation of a piece.
Mhm.
And basically what he's talking about here is when you see somebody with a special expensive watch on their wrist or a special hard to acquire watch, that when you're sharing that, you're not showing off. You are sharing your joy around the watch. And he goes into a lot of people get jealous and that really this hobby should not be about jealousy. What it should be about is inspiration. It's
Yeah.
like, man, that watch is so badass. And whether you can acquire it or not, you should appreciate what it took for that individual to get that watch. And it should inspire you, if you're heavy in this hobby, it should inspire you to figure out a way for you to acquire your own special piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that it was interesting because I do feel like sometimes there is competition or jealousy in this hobby. And I'm not one that really falls victim to that. I definitely side on, wow, that's an amazing piece. I may not be able to acquire a piece that's $250,000, but fuck, that's badass.
Yeah. Boy, am I going to try if I like it.
And
Yeah.
if I like it enough, how cool would it be if one day I could acquire something like that?
Yeah. And what does it take to acquire that? I think there's a lot.
And what does it take to acquire that?
So-
It should be inspirational.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do one of two things. It's either like I look at something, not me, but like people will look at something and they get jealous, right? This guy's driving this Ferrari. I'm jealous because I drive a 99 Honda Civic,
Mhm.
right? Nothing wrong with 99 Honda Civics, but I'm not driving one.
Felix, we're not talking about you.
Fix pissed. He's over there looking at. He's on Auto Trader looking at new cars now.
Felix, our business partner in the channel and the chief editor, is he drives a Honda Civic.
Yeah.
And he loves it.
Is it a 99 though?
No, it's a 2009.
Oh,
So
it's
it's
10 years.
10 years
10 years
newer.
cooler. Hey, it's not 99. But they look at a Ferrari and they get jealous and then they hate on the individual, right? And I think John Mayer has a really good point. Like, you get to a point where you should be able to look at it, say, that's really badass. I love it. It inspires you, and you walk away, and an hour later, you're not even thinking about it. It's just, you had a moment. It's awesome.
You had a moment.
It made me feel good that somebody else has something, and whether you can acquire it or you can't. And I think also too, people need to be like realistic in where they're at.
Yeah.
Everybody's in a different space in life.
Everybody's a different space in life. It maybe your car isn't that Ferrari, but maybe it inspires you to go get your BMW M3.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that maybe that M3 is that guy's Ferrari.
Yeah. Or maybe you just have a 2009 Honda Civic with some Nopi lowering springs. Felix?
Exactly. So I thought that was a really important part of the video.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to the mindset of the hobby, and more people really should try to shed the jealousy and really get in line with just being inspired
Right.
and being appreciative of how cool that piece is for whatever reason.
Yeah. Appreciate the art. You know?
Appreciate the art.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he goes on in the video to talk about some future developments with AP. So I thought that was cool. This is not a one and done.
Mhm.
He's going to continue. In fact, it sounds like he's in the middle of designing another piece with AP.
You know what he said in there that I really appreciated,
Yeah.
not to cut you off, is I like that he is incognito about how the collab is. He's like, it's on the back. He's like, because it's your watch, it's not my watch.
Yes.
It's just inspired, and we did a collaboration. Or I like that. I think that you can either try to own something, overly own it. I've seen collaborations where they're overly owned, like it's
Yes.
so apparent, like it would have a guitar in the middle and
Right.
John
It would have
Mayer,
Mayer signature on the dial.
yeah, like, and he's an amazing artist, brilliant, like,
He's a brilliant
Brilliant.
mind.
yeah, you can tell he's very educated and well spoken.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan. And not that you couldn't make it look nice. I just like his thought process behind it, like very subtle. And it's on the back or somewhere where it's not punching you in the face that it's a John Mayer inspired.
In fact, he talks about the next collab. He may be completely incognito.
Mhm.
AP may release the next collab and not attach his name to it at all.
That's cool. Yeah.
What
It's cool that he's cool with that.
What a humbling
Yeah.
human
Mhm.
to spend time and effort in designing a watch with
Zero,
AP
zero credit.
and then considering removing his name from it completely as a collab.
Well, you also can tell that he feels. I took away that he feels grateful for the relationship. He was talking about the bond with AP or the relationship with AP.
Definitely.
He was just saying that there's a trust there. You know, he's like, there's stuff that I know that's 3 years out.
I've got a key to the building.
Yeah.
I can just walk in.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, there's that trust. And it's cool to know an artist that's that well, decorated with his, with music is still like looks at another business or another industry and through the eyes that he's looking through. I thought it was pretty, again, humbling, cool. And you can tell he's very appreciative to be part of that family.
Yeah. And then to kind of cap off this video, he ends it at the tail end of the video, and he talks about he really believes this is the golden age for AP. And I could not agree more. I think that AP is acquiring so many new customers right now because of the interesting and fun things that they're doing, because they have decided in the last 10 years to step outside of the box.
Yeah.
Some of them have been hits, some of them have been misses, but at least they're trying. They're doing it in a thoughtful way. They're not just throwing anything out there. Every piece that they release there's been thoughtful process behind it. But I admire that about AP.
Yeah, they're trying. I think, yeah, and he made a good point on that. I think it tailored off of this about bombs. We were talking about that at breakfast. He's like, he's like, I buy the bombs. He's like, you look at the Rolex Daytona Rainbow, I bought that, and that everybody back then was like, ugh, what have you done?
Yeah.
But it's almost like the bombs become the cool watch,
They can.
Like, I remember when, it's funny, this isn't a bomb, but I remember when the Hulk was out and it was sitting in the case at the AD, and they couldn't sell it.
It was not moving.
I asked
when the Hulk was first released, probably the first half of its life.
Yeah, people are like, I don't want a green watch,
Mm-hmm.
But there's some uniqueness and quirkiness that I think that some of the bombs are kind of cool, and I find myself being allured to them.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
I'd wear the crap out of that thing, not for the value behind it. I just think it's cool,
I think it's cool as well. I did not like it when it first came out. That is a watch that, for reference, when it first came out, I was like, oh my God, it's so gaudy.
Yeah.
I can't believe Rolex did that.
I'd wear the leopard.
And then the leopards. I probably, if you gave me a choice, I might rock the leopard over the rainbow.
Yeah. I like the rainbow. I've always
the color in the rainbow.
Yeah,
is cool.
It's very vibrant.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the vibrancy, and I think the leopard is too. It's more subtle. Even what's weird, it's like jungle but subtle. Like
it's just as gaudy, just in a different way.
Yeah, just in a different way. But yeah, I think that you saw Mark Wahlberg come out with it, Jonah Hill, John Mayer, all those guys. And I think, honestly, that the market didn't like the John Mayer Daytona or the Green Dial Daytona.
Yeah, everybody
until Mayer started wearing
everybody
it.
was more attracted, I think, to the blue dial than the green dial when it first came out.
Yeah.
And so that really is what Mayer talked through. Those are some of the highlights that he talked through in the video. I encourage you to go watch it if you have not already. And to cap it off, I think John Mayer is an amazing champion of the watch industry and a great speaker for watches.
Yeah.
And so anytime that he's talking, I try to listen and soak in some of that knowledge. And so I just really appreciated him sitting down and doing that long form video with Esquire. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I have a great appreciation for him specifically because there's a lot of celebs that are collectors, and they don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that he does through true passion and not just, I have the financial means to buy, a Tiffany Nautilus or whatever. There's a lot of sports stars, and that's fine. I would do the same thing, but I like that he likes and appreciates time as much as it does.
Yeah, absolutely. What we did not do is we did not do a wrist check. So I think we should talk briefly on what we have on our wrist today. You want to go through what you
Yeah,
have?
my wrist check's probably gonna be the same as it has the last few times. I don't know how chronologically we're kicking videos, but who cares? I love the Rolex Submariner, dubbed the Hulk. Again, one of my favorite watches. I think that this piece is it's special to me. Just it was a hunt watch for me.
Mhm.
You know, so my story behind this is I turned it down from an AD. In fact, I think I lost the deal. They said, yeah, you can have it. It was right when it was 2 years before this ended, or 3 years before it ended. And I was trying to haggle on price or something like that. I was like, can I have 10% off? And she's like, yeah, let me check with the owner. And she felt good about doing it. And then I waited too long to say yes, is what it was. And they sold it to somebody else. And so then it ended, and I was on a wait list when I realized I did want it. I was like, well, throw me on the list. And it was a hunt watch, and I got it during the last year it ended, and got it for a small primo over what they normally are. I think I paid $3K over, and they shot through the roof. I won't ever sell the watch. I love it. And I'm a, I'm a green dial whore. So
Yeah, I think that's probably the coolest Submariner that is out. I have a black sub. I love my black sub. In fact, I bought this black sub to just wear it briefly, to be an owner of a black sub, and then I was going to resell it. And when I put it on my wrist, I had this preconceived notion about the black sub. And I was like, yeah, it's cool, it's iconic, but I'm going to wear it and I'll get tired of it and I'm going to turn around and sell it.
yeah,
And as soon as I put it on my wrist, is immediately once it touched the skin and I looked at it, I was like, oh, I get it.
yeah, I understand.
I understand.
Yeah, I get the cult.
Yeah.
I maybe don't buy into the cult, but I understand the feeling that somebody that doesn't know about watches.
So a black sub for me is my second favorite. Definitely love that watch, even though I struggle with Rolex a lot. I love that watch. That is my absolute favorite Submariner. I think that it's a lot of fun. It's still the same watch, classically designed, but the color itself just makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I like watches that you don't catch in the wild a lot. I have seen maybe a handful of Hulks in the wild, and it's different. It's a different conversation when you see somebody.
In 10 years, I've seen one other Hulk in the wild. Ever.
Yeah,
that's it. I've seen yours, and I've seen one other. That's it. Black sub I see every day.
Yeah,
every single day I see a black sub.
Yeah.
So that in itself makes it a lot cooler.
Yeah.
I am wearing my Rolex Explorer 2. It's the polar white dial, and take a look. I love this watch. This is before they went to the maxi case, and it's just a really cool watch. This is my very first Rolex that I ever bought, in fact, and I bought it because at the time it was the anti-Rolex of Rolex. So I specifically bought this so that I could be a Rolex owner, but kind of have the black sheep of the family.
Yeah.
And I love it for that. I also like that it's a smaller case. It's 40 mil. It's not the maxi case, so you've got tapered lugs here, and the shape is really classic. The crown guards are smaller, and everything is proportioned very well. I'm not. It's so funny. Most of the time, I'm not big on a metal bezel or a brushed bezel. I think it works so well with this combo, and it's just a really handsome functional watch. It's got a GMT function on it, which I'm a sucker for. While I don't travel enough to have to track a second time zone, I definitely use it anytime that I'm traveling, and I just think it's a cool complication. So that's what I have on my wrist today, and it's a watch like your Green Hulk that I will never get rid of.
I love the red hand on it too. I like the red hand better than the orange handplay.
I like the red better than the orange. The orange is too loud for me. In the look of this watch. It's a field watch.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I get like emergency vibes off of the orange hand.
I can understand the orange on the Milgauss.
Yeah.
You know, it's more electric, you know, and
Yeah.
the lightning bolt.
Yeah.
I get it. I just, red is again, less emergency, less, more.
It just looks good against the white to me. The contrast is really nice, and I think it plays better with the overall design of the watch than the orange hand does.
I agree.
Now, the orange hand, I believe, if I'm right, goes back to the original.
Yeah.
I think the very original was orange, and that's why they ended up going orange when they
Makes sense.
updated it. But I prefer the red. So, anyways, I hope you guys liked the video today, and stay tuned for our next one. Until then, we'll see you.